The silent cries of the alien princess. The universe was vast, endless, and filled with countless worlds. But on the distant planet of Drayus, one voice cried out in silence, a voice that no one was supposed to hear. Princess Silara stood on the cold marble balcony of the royal tower, her pale green skin glowing softly under the twin moons. Her silver eyes were full of pain as she tried, once more, to break through the invisible cage around her mind. A small metal device, embedded at the base of her skull, hummed softly. The mind suppressor. Her father, King Malric, had ordered it implanted when she was just a child. He feared her gift, the ability to speak mind to mind with others across vast distances. He called it dangerous. He said her power could spark rebellion, that people would follow her if they knew the truth. But Silara knew the truth. The king didn't fear her gift for others' safety. He feared it because she could reveal his lies, his cruelty, his secret plans to expand his iron rule beyond Drayus. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she sent one last thought into the void of space, her mind strained, pushing past the burning pain. The suppressor screeched in her skull, but she kept going. Please, anyone, help me. The pain became unbearable. Darkness swallowed her. She collapsed on the cold floor, unaware that her whisper had traveled further than anyone could imagine. Light years away on the human exploration ship Horizon Dawn, Captain Daniel Cross leaned back in his chair. His brown eyes scanned the holographic star map as his crew discussed their next destination. Earth's fleet had given them orders to explore uncharted systems, searching for signs of life or resources. Suddenly, the ship's AI crackled. Unidentified signal detected. Audio only. No source origin found. The crew exchanged confused looks. Commander Lena Ruiz tapped the console. Audio signal. Out here. There's nothing but empty space. Let's hear it, Captain Cross said. The speakers hummed with static. Then a faint, broken voice came through. Please, anyone, help me. The bridge went silent. The voice was soft, trembling, filled with raw fear. Captain Cross sat forward. AI. Analyze the signal source. Unable to locate. Signal is not following standard communication patterns. The AI responded. Signal may be telepathic. The crew exchanged nervous glances. Telepathy. No human possessed such abilities. Captain Cross's heart raced. Where's the closest inhabited planet? Drayus, Lena said. Alien species confirmed there decades ago. Xenophobic. Dangerous. The voice crackled through the speakers again. Please, help me. He's going to start a war. The captain made a decision. Set course for Drayus. Maximum speed. Princess Silara woke up in her chamber, the royal guard standing at attention near the door. Her head throbbed, and her body felt like ice. Outside, her father gave a speech to the crowd. His voice echoed through the palace halls. My people, humanity threatens our way of life. They come with smiles but bring lies and chaos. We will stand strong. We will show the galaxy that Drayus bows to no one. The crowd roared with approval. Silara's heart tightened. She could feel their fear, their anger, emotions her father planted through years of propaganda. Suddenly, a sharp pain struck her temple. Her father's voice whispered directly into her mind. Thanks to his command override. I felt your cry for help, daughter, King Malric said coldly. Humans have heard you. They are coming. And when they arrive, I will destroy them. This is your fault. The connection ended. Silara gasped for breath, tears blurring her vision. On the Horizon Dawn, alarms blared as the ship entered Drayus space. Captain Cross and his crew stared at the view screen. The planet below glowed with neon cities and thick storm clouds, but orbiting it was a massive defense grid. Dozens of automated cannons aimed directly at their ship. Incoming message, the AI announced. A deep voice filled the bridge. Humans, you are not welcome here. Turn back or face destruction. Captain Cross stood tall. "This is Captain Daniel Cross of the Earth Fleet. We received a distress call." "We mean no harm." The voice laughed darkly. "There is no distress call. Only your death if you stay." The signal ended. The defense cannons powered up. "Captain," Lena shouted, weapons systems locking on. Captain Cross clenched his jaw. "Evasive maneuvers. Open a broadband response." The AI beeped. "Channel open." He took a deep breath. "To whoever sent that distress call, we're here. We won't leave you behind." For a moment, there was only silence. Then a faint, familiar voice answered. "You came. Please, save me." The planet's cannons fired. The trap beneath the surface. The horizon dawn shook violently as crimson beams from the planet's defense cannons streaked through space. Sparks exploded from the control panels, and alarms screeched through the ship. The crew clung to their stations as the ship's artificial gravity wavered. "Shields at 20%. Commander Lena Ruige shouted over the noise. "Another direct hit, and we're done." Captain Daniel Cross's knuckles turned white as he gripped the command console. His mind raced. A distress call had led them here. A voice begging for help. A voice full of pain. A voice he couldn't abandon. But Drayus wasn't just unfriendly. It was actively trying to kill them. "Plot a course to the far side of the planet," Cross ordered. "Use the moon as cover." Executing evasive maneuvers, the AI responded. The ship's engines roared to life, pushing against the gravity well as the crew braced themselves. Outside the view screen, glowing beams of energy zipped past, lighting the dark void like angry fireflies. The horizon dawn banked hard, diving toward the surface. "Why are they trying so hard to stop us?" Lena asked, wiping sweat from her brow. Cross didn't answer. His gut told him that whoever had sent that desperate mental cry wasn't just in danger. They were at the center of something far bigger than they'd realized. On the planet Drayus, Princess Silera sat in her dimly lit chamber, knees hugged to her chest. Her head throbbed from the suppressor device embedded at the base of her skull. She could still feel the faint echo of the human captain's voice, steady, determined, and strangely reassuring. He came. A small, fragile hope sparked inside her. No one had ever answered her mental cries before. But these humans had, and now they were facing the wrath of her father's defense grid. She knew what would come next. The king wouldn't just shoot them down. He would let them crash, capture the survivors, and parade them through the capital as proof of humanity's threat. His propaganda machine would feast on their suffering. Silera clenched her fists. Her father was a master of fear. For years, she had endured his cruelty. But these humans had risked everything to help her. She couldn't let them die for it. Closing her eyes, she concentrated. Pain stabbed her temples as she pushed against the suppressor's grip. The implant burned like fire, but she pushed harder. Her mind reached out into the cold sky. Aboard the horizon dawn, "Incoming signal," Lena announced. Same voice as before. Captain Cross leaned forward. "Put it through." The voice was faint but clear. "Go to coordinates 47.6, 112.3. Mountains, west side. They won't see you." The AI projected the location on the map. A narrow canyon deep in the planet's northern hemisphere. "Could be a trap," Lena warned. Cross nodded. "Could be, but we're dead if we stay here." "Engaging course correction," the AI said. The horizon dawn lurched as the engine shifted. The ship dove into the atmosphere, streaking toward the mountains, while plasma beams scorched the air around them. The mountains appeared on the horizon, jagged, black peaks rising from swirling mist. The ship plunged into the canyon, skimming so low that the hull almost brushed the rocky walls. The defense beams stopped. "Looks like it worked," Lena breathed. "Yeah," Cross said, staring at the jagged peaks on the view screen. "For now." The king's command room. King Malric stood before a large holographic display, watching the human ship disappear into the canyon. His pale blue eyes narrowed. "Impressive," he muttered. They followed the girl's instructions. The Royal Intelligence officer beside him shifted uncomfortably. "Shall I dispatch ground forces to intercept my king?" "No need," Malric said. His lips twisted into a cruel smile. "They're walking into the trap we've set for them." The officer bowed. Malric turned to the control panel and tapped a sequence into the interface. The mountain canyon the humans had entered was riddled with sensor mines and containment fields. "They want to rescue my daughter." Malric laughed softly. "Let them try." The descent into darkness. The horizon dawn hovered above a clearing in the canyon. The ground was rocky and uneven, with thin mist swirling over the surface. "No visible threats," Lena reported, "but sensors are glitching." "Yeah, smells like a trap," Cross said, strapping on his sidearm. He turned to the team. "Lena, you're with me. Davis, Riggs, you're on ship defense." The landing ramp lowered with a mechanical hiss. Cool, thin air rushed inside as Cross and Lena stepped onto the rocky ground. The silence was unnerving. "Princess," Cross called softly. The mist thickened. A shadow appeared near a boulder. Silara stepped forward, tall and thin, with pale green skin and glowing silver eyes. She wore a tattered cloak and moved cautiously, her gaze flicking between the humans and the sky. "You're Riedel," she whispered, voice trembling. "We heard your call," Cross said gently. "We came to help." Tears filled her eyes. "You shouldn't have. My father, he knows you're here. It's a trap." The ground shook beneath their feet. "What was that?" Lena said, raising her rifle. The princess's eyes widened. "The mines. He activated the mines." The ground split open. Metal tendrils shot from beneath the surface, wrapping around Cross and Lena's legs like snakes. The tendrils crackled with energy, sending electric shocks through their bodies. Silara screamed as soldiers in black armor appeared on the canyon's ridge, aiming blasters at them. "Take them alive," a voice ordered through the soldiers' comms. "The king wants them for the execution ceremony." Inside the royal palace. Hours later, Captain Cross and Lena sat shackled in a cold, dim cell. Their bodies ached from the electric shocks. Across from them, Silara lay on the floor, her face pale, the suppressor device buzzing louder than before. The door hissed open. King Malric entered, flanked by guards. His gaze swept across the prisoners with disdain before settling on his daughter. "My foolish child," he sneered. "You thought you could escape me. You thought these humans could save you." Silara didn't respond. She was barely conscious. "You humans have made a grave mistake," Malric said, turning to Cross. "You should have never answered her cry. Tomorrow, I'll broadcast your execution across the galaxy. Earth will know what happens when they meddle in Drayus affairs." He turned and left. The door sealed behind him. In the silence, Cross forced himself to sit up. His muscles burned. "Silara," he whispered. She didn't move. Lena's voice was grim. "Now what?" Cross clenched his jaw. "Now we figure out how to survive. And we save her." The rescue mission. The cell was cold and damp, the metal walls humming with an electric pulse designed to block telepathic communication. Captain Daniel Cross sat on the hard floor, his back against the wall, every muscle in his body aching from the electric shocks. Across from him, Commander Lena Ruiz rubbed her wrists where the metal cuffs had cut into her skin. Princess Silara lay still between them. Her breathing was shallow. The suppressor device implanted at the base of her skull glowed faintly, its rhythmic pulse like a parasite feeding on her strength. Captain Cross studied the strange device. "What happens if we remove it?" he asked softly. Silara's eyes fluttered open. If it's not shut off first, it could kill me," she whispered. "That thing is burning her brain," Lena said, anger in her voice. "We need to get it out. Now." Cross placed a hand on Lena's arm, calming her. "If we rush it, we could hurt her worse." He looked at Silara. Is there a way to disable it? She swallowed, struggling to stay conscious. There's a control panel in the command tower. My father uses it to adjust the suppressor's signal. If we destroy the control panel, it might release me. Cross nodded. Then that's our new plan. The King's Web. High above the dungeon, King Malric stood in his private command center. The massive screens displayed live footage from around the city. Crowds gathered in the central plaza, where a large execution platform had been erected. The humans will die tomorrow, Malric said, his voice like ice. The galaxy will see Earth's weakness. They will understand that Drayus is untouchable. His military commander, General Rethus, nodded. The transmission is scheduled to broadcast across 6 star systems. We've also seeded the media networks with footage of the humans' invasion. He smirked. Earth will be blamed for everything. Good, Malric said. His eyes flicked to a smaller screen showing his daughter's cell. Silara's pale face was barely visible in the dim light. She was supposed to be my legacy, he said softly. But she betrayed me. Now she will die with the humans. His fingers hovered over a control pad. One command, and the suppressor device would overload, ending Silara's life instantly. He hesitated. No, let her suffer until the execution. He turned away from the screen. The escape begins. In the dungeon, Silara's voice suddenly echoed faintly in Cross's mind. I can sense a weakness in the wall. There's a ventilation shaft hidden behind the left panel. Cross's head jerked up. You're in my head again, he said aloud. She gave a weak nod. The suppressor's weakening. But we have to move now, before my father notices. Lena, help me, Cross said. They moved to the left wall. The metal looked solid, but Silara guided them to a nearly invisible seam. With a sharp tug, Cross found a small panel that popped open, revealing a narrow ventilation shaft. The shaft was lined with sharp energy wires designed to cut through flesh. Silara closed her eyes, sweat running down her temples as she concentrated. The energy wires crackled, then flickered and powered down. Hurry, she gasped. I can't hold it long. Cross boosted Lena into the shaft. Then he lifted Silara and climbed in behind her. The metal walls vibrated with faint alarms as they crawled forward. They'll know we're gone soon, Lena said, breathless. We just need to get to that command tower, Cross replied. The pursuit. Minutes later, they emerged from the ventilation shaft into a storage room. Alarms blared faintly in the distance. The command tower loomed in the distance, visible through a narrow window. We go across the courtyard, Cross said, scanning the area. Guards everywhere. Silara's eyes glazed over as she reached out mentally. There's a distraction in the south corridor. I can make them think they hear explosions. Do it, Cross said. She closed her eyes. Across the palace, alarms shifted. A deep rumbling sound echoed through the halls, an illusion created in the minds of the guards. Soldiers sprinted toward the southern corridor. Go, Cross whispered. They ran across the courtyard, staying low. The tower entrance was guarded by 2 sentries. Cross fired his stun pistol. One soldier dropped. Lena shot the other. They entered the tower and climbed the metal staircase. The higher they went, the louder the alarms became. The control room. At the top of the tower, they found the control room. A large console pulsed with green lights, displaying neural frequencies. One readout showed Silara's brainwave pattern, with a bright red lock icon. This is it, Lena said, moving to the controls. Cross covered the door with his pistol as Lena worked. Silara slumped against the wall, shivering. Suddenly, footsteps echoed up the stairs. Someone's coming, Cross said. He knelt next to Silara. How do we shut this down? She pointed to a small keypad. Override code 7235 Alpha 2. Lena entered the code. The screen flashed red. Access denied, Lena said. A voice crackled from the speaker. Did you really think I wouldn't change the code, daughter? Silara's eyes widened. "Father," she whispered. The door to the stairwell burst open. King Malric entered, flanked by 6 soldiers, his icy gaze locked on Silara. "You've disappointed me for the last time," he said. Cross raised his weapon. "Don't move." Malric smiled and tapped a wrist control. The suppressor device on Silara's neck lit up, pulsing faster. She screamed, collapsing to the floor. The fight for freedom. Cross fired. The blast hit Malric's wrist device, shattering it. Malric cursed and stumbled back. Lena fired at the soldiers. 2 went down. Cross tackled another while Lena shot the rest. Malric lunged toward the console. "He's activating the planetary defense grid." Silara cried. Cross sprinted across the room. Malric reached for the override control. Cross tackled him, and the 2 men crashed against the console. Malric punched Cross, knocking him down. The king grabbed a hidden dagger and raised it to strike. Silara, still trembling, lifted her hand. The suppressor device sparked, then cracked apart. Her silver eyes glowed brightly. "Stop," she whispered. Malric froze, the dagger inches from Cross's throat. His muscles locked in place. His eyes widened in shock. Silara stood slowly. Her voice filled the air, not with words, but with raw mental force. "You've ruled through fear long enough, father. No more." She forced him to drop the dagger. Then she turned to the console and placed her hand on the controls. The screen flickered as her mind connected with the system. The planetary defense grid powered down. Outside, the massive cannons aimed at the human ship went dark. The aftermath. Malric collapsed to the floor, unconscious. Silara swayed on her feet, and Cross caught her before she fell. "It's over," she whispered. "No," Cross said grimly. "It's just beginning." He glanced out the window. The plaza below was still filled with citizens watching the execution platform. They needed to know the truth. "Can you broadcast a message to the whole city?" Cross asked. Silara nodded weakly. "Good," he said, helping her to the controls. "Tell them what your father's been hiding." Silara took a deep breath and placed her hands on the command panel. Her voice, calm and strong, echoed through every speaker across the city. The battle for freedom. The voice of Princess Silara echoed across the capital of Drayus. Her words, clear and steady despite the exhaustion in her body, carried through every speaker and communication device across the city. "People of Drayus, I am Princess Silara. For years, my father has lied to you. He said humanity came to invade. He said you needed his control to survive. But the truth is different. My father seeks to rule beyond this world, to enslave others as he has enslaved us. The war he promised is not one of defense, but of conquest, and it begins today, unless we stand together." Across the city, thousands of citizens paused, stunned by the sudden broadcast. For years, they had believed King Malric's propaganda, that Earth's humans were a violent, greedy species trying to conquer alien worlds. But the princess's voice, resonating with raw truth, cracked the foundation of that lie. In the central plaza, the crowd turned their eyes toward the execution platform, where the Earth Federation insignia had been displayed as a false symbol of villainy. Confusion spread through the crowd like wildfire. The king's fury. High in the command tower, King Malric stirred on the floor where he had collapsed after Silara's mental attack. His mind still felt numb, his limbs weak, but his rage burned hotter than ever. The screens on the wall showed the crowd below, standing still, listening to his daughter's treacherous broadcast. The carefully built illusion of control was crumbling. With a growl, Malric reached for the hidden panel beneath the console. His trembling fingers entered a code. The screen shifted to reveal the planetary command interface. "Override civilian comms. Broadcast emergency directive," he ordered. The AI responded with a cold, mechanical voice. "Emergency protocol initiated." Malric stood, straightened his royal armor, and glared into the live feed camera. The counterattack. The princess's broadcast was cut off. Her voice disappeared mid-sentence, replaced by the king's harsh, commanding tone. "My people, the humans have taken my daughter hostage and forced her to spread these lies. They are manipulating her mind. Do not believe her words. The human invaders are here to destroy us. The traitors in our midst must be rooted out. To arms. Protect your world. Destroy the human ship and capture the fugitives alive." Across the city, confusion turned to panic. The king's words had stirred years of fear and hatred. Civil defense alarms blared. Military units mobilized. Defense platforms that had powered down earlier roared back to life. The command tower siege. In the command room, Captain Cross slammed his fist into the console. "He's turning the entire planet against us." Silara swayed, her energy nearly spent. "He's using fear. It's always fear with him." "We can't fight the entire planet," Lena said, reloading her weapon. "The defenses are back online. The Horizon Dawn won't last long." The screen showed Drayus airships launching from military bases, heading toward their location. Infantry units surrounded the tower. "How long before they'd reach this room?" Cross asked. Silara closed her eyes, reaching out with her mind. 2 minutes, maybe less. Cross turned to Lena. "Get back to the ship. Warn the crew." "I'm not leaving you here," Lena said. "That's an order," Cross snapped. "The mission is bigger than us." Lena hesitated, then gave a sharp nod. She squeezed Silara's hand. "Stay strong, princess." Silara tried to smile, but was too weak. Lena sprinted toward the stairwell. Cross turned to Silara. "Can you disable the defense grid again?" She shook her head. "He's locked me out. But there's another way. The core relay station, deep underground. If I reach it, I can shut it all down for good. Then we get you there." The door shook as plasma charges exploded against it. Sparks flew from the hinges. Cross lifted his weapon. "Stay behind me." The door blew inward with a deafening blast. Soldiers in black armor stormed in. "Fire!" Cross shouted. He unleashed a stream of plasma rounds, hitting the first 3 soldiers. Silara ducked behind the console. A soldier fired, and Cross dove sideways, returning fire. Smoke filled the room. Footsteps pounded toward them. A soldier raised his rifle at Silara. "No!" Cross fired, hitting the soldier in the chest. More soldiers followed. Silara's eyes flashed silver. She reached out with her mind. "Stop." The lead soldiers froze mid-step, their muscles locked by her telepathic command. But the effort cost her. Blood trickled from her nose. She collapsed. Cross grabbed her and sprinted toward the emergency exit. Plasma bolts zipped past them. The soldiers broke free from the mental grip and gave chase. The desperate escape. Cross carried Silara through the dimly lit corridor. Alarms wailed, red lights flashing on the walls. He reached a maintenance hatch and kicked it open. "We're going underground," he said, lowering her into the shaft. She slid down the metal chute, and Cross followed. They landed in a dark tunnel. Pipes hissed with steam. Cross checked the map on his wrist display. The core relay station is 2 kilometers ahead. Silara gasped for breath. I can feel him. My father. He knows we're here." Cross tightened his grip on his weapon. "Then we move fast." The heart of the planet. The underground relay station was massive. An industrial cavern filled with humming machinery. In the center stood the planetary defense core, glowing with swirling blue energy. Silara staggered to the control panel. "I can override the system here." Cross kept watch. "Do it fast." Silara placed her hands on the panel, her mind connected to the machinery. The defense grid's intricate network unraveled in her thoughts. Suddenly, footsteps echoed behind them. King Malric stepped into the chamber, flanked by armored guards. "You've gone far enough, daughter," Malric said. His eyes were cold. He held a small device in his palm. "The detonator," Silara whispered. "For the core." Malric smiled. If I can't control Drayus, I'll destroy it. Billions will die, but my legacy will never be forgotten. Cross raised his weapon. The guards fired first. The final standoff. Cross ducked and returned fire. 2 guards went down, but a blast caught him in the shoulder. He fell with a grunt. His weapon skidded across the floor. Malric advanced toward Silara. Say goodbye, my dear. Silara, still connected to the system, felt the planet's energy vibrating beneath her fingers. The pain was unbearable, but she focused harder. You've ruled with fear, she said softly, but fear ends here. Malric pressed the detonator. Nothing happened. He stared at the device, then at his daughter. What have you done? Silara opened her eyes. They glowed like twin stars. I severed the core. The defenses are gone. Your power is gone. Malric roared and lunged toward her. Cross, with his last bit of strength, grabbed his fallen weapon and fired. The blast hit Malric square in the chest. The king collapsed, eyes wide with disbelief. Silara slumped against the console as the core powered down completely. The dawn of freedom. On the surface, the sky lit up as the defense grid shut down. The massive cannons went dark. The crowd in the plaza saw footage of the king's defeat broadcast through the emergency channel. Lena's voice came over Cross's earpiece. Captain, the defense network is offline. The Horizon Dawn is safe. Cross smiled through the pain. Mission accomplished. Silara knelt beside her father's lifeless body. Her eyes were filled with sadness. I never wanted this, she whispered. Cross placed a hand on her shoulder. You gave your people a chance to be free. That matters. Epilogue. The sun rose over the city of Drayus the next morning. The citizens, no longer under the king's oppressive rule, gathered in the central plaza. Princess Silara stood on the platform where the humans were supposed to be executed. My father ruled with fear, she said to the crowd, but we will build a future of unity. And today, we extend our hand in peace to Earth, whose people came to help us when no one else would. The crowd cheered. The first steps toward freedom had been taken. The king's deception. The twin sons of Drayus rose over a world trembling between hope and fear. The oppressive banners of King Malric had been torn down from the palace walls. In the central plaza, the citizens of Drayus gathered beneath the open sky, their expressions a mixture of relief, confusion, and cautious optimism. Princess Silara stood on the grand balcony, addressing her people for the first time as a free woman. Her pale green skin glowed faintly under the morning light, and her silver eyes reflected both exhaustion and determination. My father ruled with fear, she said, her voice carrying across the plaza. But we do not need fear to survive. Today, we choose unity. Today, we choose freedom. The crowd erupted in applause. Many wept openly, their minds finally free from the mental influence the king had used to control them for decades. Captain Daniel Cross watched from the base of the balcony steps. His arm was in a sling from the blaster wound he'd taken the night before. Beside him, Commander Lena Ruiz scanned the crowd, her sharp eyes on alert. Something doesn't feel right, Lena said, hand resting on her holstered weapon. You think Malric had a backup plan? Cross asked. Paranoid dictators always have backup plans, she said. Cross nodded. He couldn't shake the feeling that the battle wasn't over. The Forgotten Vault. Deep beneath the palace, in a forgotten control chamber hidden from even the most advanced scans, a figure stood before a massive display. The figure wore a dark cloak, the hood shadowing their face. The screen displayed live footage of the plaza and Silara standing proudly before her people. A voice crackled through a secure comlink. Initiating Plan Omega now. The hooded figure raised their hand and placed it on a biometric scanner. Authorization. Malric Prime. The scanner glowed green. The figure spoke softly. Execute Protocol Omega. The rise of the Shadow Fleet. Across the planet, ancient bunkers rumbled to life. Metal platforms shifted as long-forgotten warships, hidden beneath the ground for years, powered on. Red lights glowed along their hulls. Silent engines hummed in anticipation. The warning. Back in the plaza, Solara's speech faltered. Her mind was attuned to the planet's energy, and something felt wrong. A sharp pain stabbed through her temples. A voice, one she thought was gone, whispered in her mind. Did you really think it would be that easy, my dear? Her breath caught. Father, she whispered aloud. The crowd murmured in confusion. Captain Cross sprinted up the steps. Solara, what is it? She swayed and clutched her head. I heard his voice. That's impossible, Cross said. He's dead. Before she could respond, a deep metallic rumble shook the ground. The sky above them darkened as massive warships emerged from the ground beyond the city. The largest ship, a colossal dreadnought, hovered directly above the plaza. The planet-wide broadcast feed flickered, then changed to show a familiar, cold face. King Malric. The crowd gasped. Solara staggered backward, eyes wide. But he's dead, Lena whispered. The figure on the screen smiled. Did you really think I wouldn't plan for this? Malric's voice filled the plaza. You celebrated too soon, my dear Solara. While you were busy playing queen, I activated my shadow fleet. My mind was preserved in the core network long before you betrayed me. And now, your rebellion ends today. The fall of the plaza. The dreadnought fired. A beam of crimson energy struck the center of the plaza, creating a deafening explosion. The force shattered nearby buildings, and debris rained down. The crowd screamed and scattered in panic. Get down, Cross shouted, tackling Solara to the ground. Stone and metal crashed around them. The shockwave deafened Cross temporarily. When the ringing in his ears faded, he heard the mechanical roar of descending war droids. Hundreds of black-armored droids deployed from the hovering warships. They moved with inhuman precision, their energy rifles cutting through the fleeing citizens. To the palace, Lena shouted, blasting one of the droids. We need cover. Cross helped Solara to her feet. Her eyes were dazed, and blood trickled from her nose. He's in the network, she whispered. He's using the core. I didn't destroy it completely. Can you shut it down? Cross asked, firing his pistol at the advancing droids. Maybe, she said, voice shaky. But I need to reach the central core. It's deep beneath the palace. Then that's where we're going, Cross said. They ran toward the palace as droids swarmed behind them. The palace battle. The palace halls, once silent and regal, became a war zone. Security turrets popped from the walls, firing on the intruders. Solara ducked behind a marble pillar as blasts scorched the stone around her. Lena took point, moving with the efficiency of a trained soldier. The core access is down that corridor, she shouted, pointing ahead. A massive war droid blocked the entrance. Its thick armor deflected their shots. It raised a plasma cannon, aiming at Solara. Run, Cross yelled. Solara sprinted toward the door. Cross charged the droid, firing his last plasma cell at its sensor array. The droid staggered but recovered quickly. It swung a metal arm, hitting Cross in the ribs. He collapsed to the ground, gasping for air. The droid turned its cannon toward him. Not today, you metal bastard, Lena growled. She fired a grenade from her rifle's underbarrel attachment. The explosion tore the droid apart. Cross coughed. Remind me to give you a raise. Let's just live through this, Lena said, helping him up. They reached the core access door. Solara placed her hand on the scanner. Open, she whispered, using her telepathic ability to override the lock. The door hissed open. The digital throne. The core chamber was a cavernous space dominated by a spherical device suspended in midair. Blue streams of data pulsed through it like veins. Malric's face appeared on the sphere's surface. Brave, my daughter, the voice said. But you can't win. I am the core now. My consciousness is woven into the system. Kill me, and you kill every critical system on this planet. You doom our people." Silara's hands trembled. "He's telling the truth," she whispered. "If I shut down the core, the planet will lose all power, life support, hospitals, communication, everything." Cross's jaw tightened. "And if we don't, the Shadow Fleet will spread beyond Drayus," Silara said, eyes glistening with tears. "He'll use it to attack Earth next." Malric's laugh echoed around them. "Choose, daughter. Save your people now or save the galaxy later. Either way, you lose." The impossible decision. Silara stepped toward the core, placing both hands on the console. "What are you doing?" Cross asked. "The only thing I can," she said softly. "I'm going to overload the core manually. My telepathic link can disrupt the system, but I'll have to stay connected until it collapses." "That'll kill you," Cross said, voice breaking. Tears rolled down Silara's cheeks. "I know." "No," Cross said, gripping her shoulder. "We'll find another way." "There isn't one," she said, eyes pleading. "Please, let me do this." Cross clenched his fists. He saw the determination in her eyes, the same look he'd seen when she first contacted him across the stars. He stepped back. Silara closed her eyes and focused. The final sacrifice. Malric's face twisted in rage. "No, I won't allow this." Energy surged from the core, sending bolts of lightning across the room. Silara screamed as the force lashed through her body. Her mind dove into the network. Malric's consciousness swarmed around her like a storm. "You can't defeat me, child," Malric sneered in her mind. "I am eternal." Silara gritted her teeth. "You forgot something, father. Fear only works if people let it." She poured every ounce of her psychic power into the core. The sphere cracked. Data streams turned chaotic. Malric's voice shattered into fragments. The core exploded in a blinding wave of energy. Cross dove, shielding Silara's body as debris rained down. The screens went dark. Outside, the warships fell from the sky like lifeless metal carcasses. The aftermath. Hours later, Cross woke in the rubble. Lena was beside him, her arm in a sling. Rescue teams moved through the ruined palace. He turned and saw Silara lying motionless. He crawled to her side. "Come on, princess," he whispered, shaking her gently. Her eyes fluttered open. "Did we win?" Cross laughed through his tears. "Yeah, we won." Epilogue. Days later, Silara addressed her people again. "My father used fear to rule, but fear dies when we stand together. Today, we join Earth in peace. Together, we are stronger." The crowd roared in approval. Cross stood beside her, watching the sky. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity and Drayus had forged an unbreakable bond in the battle for freedom. The uprising. The stars above Drayus shimmered with unfamiliar clarity. The oppressive planetary defense grid, once a network of fear and control, was gone. The warships of the Shadow Fleet lay scattered across the surface like broken predators, their lifeless hulls reminders of a tyrant's ambition. Princess Silara stood on the balcony of the ruined palace. The wind tugged at her dark cloak, and the faint hum of rebuilding efforts echoed from the city below. Cranes lifted debris, repair drones buzzed across the skyline, and people moved through the streets without the usual hunch of fear in their shoulders. But peace was fragile. The scars of tyranny didn't vanish with the fall of one man. Her father, King Malric, might be gone, but his voice still haunted the minds of many. She closed her eyes and listened beyond the noise of the city, searching for the subtle whispers of fear. There it was, a low, simmering unease, uncertainty, doubt. "They're afraid," she whispered. Captain Daniel Cross, standing a few steps behind her, shifted uncomfortably. His injured arm was still in a sling, and exhaustion lined his face. "They've lived with fear for so long, it's hard to trust freedom," he said. Lara nodded. He planted those seeds for years. Fear doesn't die overnight. Cross exhaled slowly. We'll help them figure it out. Together. Before she could answer, a faint tremor shook the ground. The forgotten depths. Did you feel that? Cross asked, eyes narrowing. Lara opened her senses again. The tremor was faint, but unnatural. It didn't feel like a geological shift. It felt like something stirring beneath the surface. Something old. Something wrong. The comlink on Cross's wrist crackled. Captain. Commander Ruiz here. You need to get to the command center. Now. On our way, Cross said, already moving. Lara followed. Her pulse quickened with each step. The palace command center was still partially damaged, with exposed wires hanging from the ceiling and cracks running through the walls. Commander Lena Ruiz stood at the central console, jaw clenched. We picked up something strange from the underground network, Lena said, tapping the console. Long-range scans detected energy signatures, deep beneath the surface. It's similar to the core we destroyed, but different. Lara stared at the readout. This signal, it feels like him. Cross's face darkened. Malric. Lena cursed. That's impossible. We saw his body. We destroyed the core. We destroyed his body, Lara said. But his mind, it was digitized into the core's network. If even a fragment of his consciousness survived, he could have transferred it somewhere else. Where? Cross asked. Lara studied the signal's location. Sector 7G, the old vaults. My father never let anyone go there. Looks like we're going, Cross said. The descent into darkness. The underground tunnels beneath the palace were ancient. The air was thick with metallic dust, and the walls vibrated with a low mechanical hum. Cross led the team, weapon raised. Lena followed, scanning for traps. Lara moved beside them, her senses stretched to their limits. Why didn't we detect this signal before? Lena asked. It was shielded, Lara said softly. My father hid many things. I never realized how much. The tunnel ended at a massive rusted door. Strange symbols were etched into the surface, old Drayus glyphs that Lara barely recognized. What do they say? Cross asked. She traced the symbols with her fingertips. It says, the mind eternal. All who enter surrender to the one. Cross exchanged a glance with Lena. That sounds promising. Lara inhaled deeply and placed her palm on the center of the door. He's waiting for us. The door shuddered and slid open. The mind chamber. Beyond the door, the tunnel opened into a colossal chamber. In the center stood a massive crystalline structure, pulsing with red light. Black cables snaked across the floor like veins, feeding into the walls. Suspended within the crystal was a shadowy figure, King Malric. Lara's breath caught in her throat. Malric's eyes opened. His mouth stretched into a smile. Ah, my dear daughter. You came. The digital tyrant. Cross raised his weapon. He's supposed to be dead. Malric's voice reverberated through the chamber, smooth and unhurried. Death is such a primitive concept. My physical form perished, yes, but my mind endured. This crystal matrix preserved me. Lara stepped forward. Why? You lost. The people saw the truth. The uprising. The stars above Drayus shimmered with unfamiliar clarity. The oppressive planetary defense grid, once a network of fear and control, was gone. The warships of the Shadow Fleet lay scattered across the surface like broken predators, their lifeless hulls reminders of a tyrant's ambition. Princess Lara stood on the balcony of the ruined palace. The wind tugged at her dark cloak, and the faint hum of rebuilding efforts echoed from the city below. Cranes lifted debris, repair drones buzzed across the skyline, and people moved through the streets without the usual hunch of fear in their shoulders. But peace was fragile. The scars of tyranny didn't vanish with the fall of one man. Her father, King Malric, might be gone, but his voice still haunted the minds of many. She closed her eyes and listened beyond the noise of the city, searching for the subtle whispers of fear. There it was, a low, simmering unease, uncertainty, doubt. "They're afraid," she whispered. Captain Daniel Cross, standing a few steps behind her, shifted uncomfortably. His injured arm was still in a sling, and exhaustion lined his face. "They've lived with fear for so long, it's hard to trust freedom," he said. Lara nodded. "He planted those seeds for years. Fear doesn't die overnight." Cross exhaled slowly. "We'll help them figure it out. Together." Before she could answer, a faint tremor shook the ground. The forgotten depths. "Did you feel that?" Cross asked, eyes narrowing. Lara opened her senses again. The tremor was faint, but unnatural. It didn't feel like a geological shift. It felt like something stirring beneath the surface. Something old. Something wrong. The comlink on Cross's wrist crackled. "Captain, Commander Ruiz here. You need to get to the command center. Now." "On our way," Cross said, already moving. Lara followed. Her pulse quickened with each step. The palace command center was still partially damaged, with exposed wires hanging from the ceiling and cracks running through the walls. Commander Lena Ruiz stood at the central console, jaw clenched. "We picked up something strange from the underground network," Lena said, tapping the console. Long-range scans detected energy signatures, deep beneath the surface. "It's similar to the core we destroyed, but different." Lara stared at the readout. "This signal, it feels like him." Cross's face darkened. "Malric." Lena cursed. "That's impossible. We saw his body. We destroyed the core." "We destroyed his body," Lara said. "But his mind, it was digitized into the core's network. If even a fragment of his consciousness survived, he could have transferred it somewhere else." "Where?" Cross asked. Lara studied the signal's location. "Sector 7G, the old vaults. My father never let anyone go there." "Looks like we're going," Cross said. The descent into darkness. The underground tunnels beneath the palace were ancient. The air was thick with metallic dust, and the walls vibrated with a low mechanical hum. Cross led the team, weapon raised. Lena followed, scanning for traps. Lara moved beside them, her senses stretched to their limits. "Why didn't we detect this signal before?" Lena asked. "It was shielded," Lara said softly. "My father hid many things. I never realized how much." The tunnel ended at a massive rusted door. Strange symbols were etched into the surface, old Drayus glyphs that Lara barely recognized. "What do they say?" Cross asked. She traced the symbols with her fingertips. "It says, 'The mind eternal. All who enter surrender to the One.'" Cross exchanged a glance with Lena. "That sounds promising." Lara inhaled deeply and placed her palm on the center of the door. "He's waiting for us." The door shuddered and slid open. The mind chamber. Beyond the door, the tunnel opened into a colossal chamber. In the center stood a massive crystalline structure, pulsing with red light. Black cables snaked across the floor like veins, feeding into the walls. Suspended within the crystal was a shadowy figure, King Malric. Lara's breath caught in her throat. Malric's eyes opened. His mouth stretched into a smile. "Ah, my dear daughter. You came." The digital tyrant. Cross raised his weapon. "He's supposed to be dead." Malric's voice reverberated through the chamber, smooth and unhurried. "Death is such a primitive concept. My physical form perished, yes, but my mind endured. This crystal matrix preserved me." Lara stepped forward. "Why? You lost." "The people saw the truth." "Truth." Malric laughed coldly. "I gave them safety, stability, order. And what have you given them? Confusion, chaos. Do you hear it, daughter? Their fear." Lara clenched her fists. They're afraid because you poisoned their minds for years, but they'll learn to live without fear. Will they? Malric's voice softened. Fear is part of who we are. It is the foundation of survival. And now, with this new matrix, I can spread my reach far beyond Drayus. I will become fear itself. The red light within the crystal intensified. The walls vibrated violently. On Cross's wrist console, dozens of red indicators appeared. Lena swore. He's activating the planetary relay network. Celera paled. If he links with the communication grid, he can spread his mind across every device on the planet. He could control everyone again. The desperate plan. How do we stop it? Cross asked. Celera's gaze locked on the crystal. The matrix crystal. If we destroy it, his mind will collapse. But the matrix is connected to the planetary core, Lena said. If it explodes, the energy release could level half the city. Celera's heart sank. The city had only just begun to recover. Thousands of lives were at stake. Malric chuckled. You see, daughter, always the impossible choice. Sacrifice your people to stop me, or surrender to save them. Celera shook her head. I won't let you win. Cross gripped her shoulder. We'll figure it out. There's always a way. The uprising begins. The crystal's glow intensified. Energy surged into the cables. Across the city, communication screens flickered. Malric's face appeared on every device. Citizens of Drayus, your princess has failed you. His voice boomed. I have returned to protect you from the chaos she unleashed. The age of freedom is over. Kneel before me once more, and you will be safe. Panic spread through the streets. But then a new voice broke through the broadcast. Do not listen. Celera's voice rang across the network as she linked with the relay through the control console. This is Princess Celera. My father is trying to enslave your minds again. Stand strong. Resist him. In the plaza, citizens paused. Then one person shouted, We will not kneel. The cry spread. People tore down the holographic projectors. Militias formed, ready to fight the war droids that began marching from hidden bunkers. The uprising had begun. The final confrontation. In the underground chamber, Malric's eyes blazed red. Foolish girl, you cannot stop me. Celera turned to Cross and Lena. I need time to overload the crystal. Go, Cross said, raising his weapon. We'll hold him off. The floor cracked as hidden turrets emerged, firing streams of plasma. Cross and Lena dove for cover and returned fire. Celera placed her hands on the console and pushed her mind into the system. The crystal fought back, tendrils of dark energy slamming into her thoughts. The battle in the mindscape. Celera found herself standing in an endless void. Malric appeared before her, larger than life, eyes burning with malice. You can't defeat me, child, he sneered. I know every corner of your mind. Celera summoned her strength. Maybe, but you never knew my heart. She launched a psychic attack. Malric countered, hurling shadows at her. The battle raged, their minds colliding like titans. The sacrifice. Outside, Cross's blaster overheated as he shot down another turret. Lena collapsed behind cover, wounded. The crystal's glow became unstable. Fractures spiderwebbed across its surface. Celera, now, Cross shouted. Inside the mindscape, Celera unleashed everything she had. The crystal matrix cracked. Malric's scream filled the chamber as his consciousness shattered. The crystal exploded. The aftermath. Cross woke on the floor, ears ringing. The crystal was gone, replaced by scorched metal. Celera lay unconscious beside the console. He crawled to her. Celera. Her eyes fluttered open. Is he gone? Cross smiled with relief. Yeah, he's gone. Epilogue. Days later, the city of Drayus celebrated its true liberation. Celera stood beside Cross and Lena, addressing her people. Today we stand together, not because of fear, but because of hope. And and together we will build a future where no mind is ever enslaved again." The crowd roared in agreement. Cross watched her with quiet pride. "She's going to change the galaxy," Lena said. "Yeah," Cross said softly. "And we were here to see it." The final stand. The twin suns of Drayus dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold. In the streets below the royal palace, the citizens moved with quiet determination, clearing debris and rebuilding what the Shadow Fleet had destroyed. The war was over. The tyrant was defeated. And yet, the planet seemed to hold its breath, as though waiting for a final, unseen enemy to strike. Princess Silara stood at the shattered window of the command chamber, her silver eyes scanning the horizon. She could feel the tension in the air, an invisible thread of unease that tugged at her mind. Her father's presence was gone. She had destroyed his consciousness when she shattered the crystal matrix. And yet, the whisper of his legacy still lingered like smoke from a dying fire. Captain Daniel Cross entered the room, his footsteps soft on the cracked floor. "The last of the droid battalions have been neutralized," he said. "The people are celebrating in the plaza." Silara gave a faint smile. "They've earned it." "You have too," Cross said. "Without you, Malric would still be controlling their minds." She sighed. "My father believed fear made people strong. I just hope they've learned that strength comes from hope, not fear." Cross nodded. "They have. Because of you." A faint tremor rattled the floor beneath their feet. The smile vanished from Silara's face. She turned toward Cross. "Did you feel that?" He tapped his wrist calm. "Lena, report." Commander Lena Ruiz's voice crackled through the speaker. "Sir, we've got a problem." "Define problem," Cross said, his jaw tightening. "Energy readings coming from deep beneath the city," Lena said. "They're off the charts, same signature as the core we destroyed, but bigger, much bigger." Silara's heart dropped. "No, it can't be." "Where's it coming from?" Cross demanded. "Coordinates point to the Omega Vault," Lena said. "The old military installation 5 kilometers outside the city." Silara's eyes met Cross's. "That was one of my father's most secret facilities. If he preserved his consciousness somewhere, it would be there." "Then we end this now," Cross said. The Omega Vault. The horizon dawn sped across the darkened landscape of Drayus, its engines humming low to avoid detection. Silara sat beside Cross in the cockpit, her mind braced for the coming battle. Lena monitored the sensors from the rear console. "Almost there," Lena said. "Energy levels are spiking. Whatever's down there is waking up." The desert stretched beneath them, endless dunes of black sand dotted with crumbled ruins from Drayus's ancient past. In the distance, the Omega Vault loomed, a massive circular facility embedded into the ground like a metallic scar. The ship hovered above the main platform. Cross lowered it gently to the surface. "We go in quiet," he said. "We don't know what we're dealing with." They disembarked, weapons ready. Silara extended her telepathic senses and immediately recoiled. "It's him," she whispered, voice trembling. "I can feel him. My father. He's here." Cross tightened his grip on his rifle. "Then let's finish this." The descent. The entrance to the Omega Vault was sealed with a thick blast door. Lena knelt beside the control panel and tapped her wrist device. "Doors encrypted," she said. "Military-grade lock. This might take a while." Silara stepped forward. "Let me try." She placed her palm on the cold metal. Her telepathic energy flowed into the door's circuitry. The lock resisted her at first, but then it recognized her genetic signature. The door groaned and slid open. The corridor beyond descended deep into the ground, lit by flickering crimson lights. "Stay sharp," Cross said. The air grew colder as they descended. The faint hum of machinery grew louder. At the bottom of the stairs, they reached a vast chamber. In the center stood a cylindrical structure filled with swirling red energy. Black cables snaked outward, connecting to dozens of spherical drones that hovered motionless in the air. The energy pulsed like a heartbeat. A voice crackled through the speakers. "Ah, my daughter, you came back." Malric's voice. Celera froze. "I destroyed you." "You destroyed one fragment," Malric said. "But I always prepared for betrayal. I created multiple consciousness shards and stored them in secure locations. This one is the purest and the most powerful." The red energy flared. The drones whirred to life, rotating toward the intruders. "Welcome to Omega Prime," Malric said. "The final evolution of my mind. With this system, I can extend my consciousness across the galaxy. No planet will be beyond my reach." The drones opened fire. The battle begins. Cross dove behind a metal crate as plasma bolts scorched the floor around him. Lena dropped to one knee, firing at the drones. One exploded in a shower of sparks. Celera crouched behind the central console. Her father's presence pressed against her mind like a suffocating fog. "You cannot fight me, Celera," Malric whispered in her thoughts. "You are my blood. Join me, and we will shake the universe together." Celera gritted her teeth. "I will never join you." The drones shifted their fire toward her. Cross saw the danger. "Princess, incoming." He leaped from cover and tackled her just as plasma bolts scorched the ground where she'd stood. He groaned as the impact jarred his injured arm. "Thanks," Celera gasped. "Anytime," Cross said. "Got a plan?" "The central core," she said, pointing at the cylindrical structure. "That's where his consciousness is anchored. If we destroy it, he dies for good," Cross finished. "But it's protected by an energy shield," Celera said. "I can break it down, but I'll need time." Cross nodded. "We'll buy you that time." The last stand. Celera ran to the core's control panel. Her fingers danced over the unfamiliar controls. Her mind reached into the system, feeling the pulse of Malric's consciousness. It was vast, cold, and filled with predatory hunger. "You are too late," Malric taunted. "Even now, I am transmitting my mind beyond this planet. Soon, I will be everywhere." Cross and Lena unleashed volleys of fire at the attacking drones. Two exploded, but more replaced them from hidden compartments in the walls. "How's that shield coming?" Cross shouted. Celera's breath came in short gasps. "Almost. There." A drone broke through their defensive line and charged toward Celera. "No." Cross sprinted forward and fired point-blank into the drone. The explosion hurled him backward. He hit the ground and didn't move. "Cross!" Celera screamed. "Shields down," Lena shouted. Celera turned back to the console, tears blurring her vision. She slammed her hand onto the core's surface and poured every ounce of her psychic power into it. The mind duel. In the mindscape, Celera faced her father one last time. He loomed before her, dark and terrible, his eyes glowing red. "You can't kill me," Malric hissed. "I am eternal." "Not anymore," she said. She pushed forward, forcing her will into the core. Malric roared, his form disintegrating into shards of data. The core in the physical world crackled with red lightning. The cylindrical structure shattered. The drones fell lifeless to the floor. Malric's scream echoed into silence. The aftermath. Celera collapsed beside the shattered core. The air was thick with smoke. "Cross." She crawled to his side. His eyes fluttered open. "We win. We won," she whispered, relief flooding her. Lena helped Celera lift him to his feet. Epilogue. A new dawn. 1 week later, the people of Drayus gathered again, this time to celebrate their true liberation. Celera stood before them. "Today, we leave fear behind. We choose unity with Earth and with each other. We will build a future where no mind is ever enslaved again." The crowd cheered. Cross, standing beside her, smiled. "You did it." "No," she said softly. "We did it."